When she passed away, the nurses said it was the calmest moment they had ever witnessed. No machines were beeping. No gasping. No final fight for breath. She simply exhaled, and didn't inhale again. At 94, her life had ended the same way she had lived it, gently. But what stunned the doctors wasn't just the peacefulness of her passing. It was the complete absence of medical history. No diabetes. No hypertension. No dementia. No major surgeries. No long list of prescriptions. Her medical file, one thin folder, was almost empty. And in the age of modern medicine, that was shocking. She wasn't a celebrity. She didn't write books. She didn't post health advice online. But everyone who knew her knew something was different. She lived in a standard apartment in a mid-sized city. There was traffic noise, upstairs neighbors, and a supermarket 2 blocks away. She didn't live in a mountaintop retreat or some magical blue zone. Her life was ordinary. But there was one thing she did that wasn't. Every day, for nearly 50 years, she gave herself what she called the gift of 10 minutes. Just for her. No matter the weather, no matter the season, she would sit in the same chair by the window, hold a warm cup of tea, and simply exist. No phone. No talking. No reading. Just breathing. Noticing. Letting the world unfold in front of her without reacting. She didn't call it meditation. She didn't even think of it as a health habit. She just said, "It's how I remember who I am." That simple ritual, so easily dismissed by others, became the quiet rhythm that sustained her. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't trendy. But it worked. Studies now show that even 10 minutes a day of intentional stillness can lower cortisol, reduce inflammation, improve immune function, and sharpen cognition. But she didn't need a study. She just knew she felt better when she did it. Her children used to laugh about it when they were young. They called it Mom's staring session. But when they grew up, moved out, and faced their own storms, they found themselves thinking back to those mornings. And wondering if that quiet time was what gave her so much strength. Neighbors noticed too. She walked with ease. She never rushed. She never snapped at anyone. She'd remember small things about people, what fruit they liked, how they took their coffee. She was present. Not just physically, but emotionally. One neighbor once said, she wasn't just alive. She was aware. In a world addicted to distractions, she chose attention. In a world chasing stimulation, she embraced silence. And now we're left asking, what if health doesn't only come from what you eat, or how much you move, but also from how deeply you sit with yourself? What if peace is more powerful than pills? What if the real medicine is stillness? She didn't grow up in a world that encouraged self-care. She came of age when survival was the priority, not wellness. Her days were filled with chores, cooking, raising children, and scraping through life one bill at a time. She didn't have the luxury of therapy or yoga classes. But in that relentless rhythm of responsibility, she discovered something rare, a moment of space. It started accidentally. One morning, long ago, her alarm didn't go off. Her children were still asleep. There was a hush in the house she hadn't felt in years. She didn't rush to fill it. She just stood at the window and breathed. She said later, "I felt like I met myself again that morning." That meeting became a daily appointment. She never saw it as an obligation. It wasn't scheduled. There were no timers. No journals. No mantras. She didn't try to empty her mind. She didn't try to manifest success. She simply was. And that was enough. That's what made it powerful. There was no performance. No pressure to feel anything. Only observation. The sky changing color. Steam rising off her tea. The subtle shift in the sounds of the street. The quiet hum of life unfolding. Years passed. Her children grew up and left home. Friends moved away. Some passed on. The city changed. Prices rose. The pace quickened. But her ritual remained. The same chair. The same window. The same 10 minutes. Sometimes she smiled to herself. Sometimes tears fell without her knowing why. But no matter what was happening in the world, a financial crash, a political storm, a global pandemic, she returned to the window. And she returned to herself. It wasn't just emotional healing. Over time, her body reflected this stability. She never experienced digestive issues. Her blood pressure stayed within perfect range. She had no signs of cardiovascular damage, even at 90. Her skin was supple, her hands steady, her gait strong. Her doctors were puzzled. One even asked if she was secretly taking something. She laughed and said, yes. 10 minutes a day. That answer stayed with the nurse who heard it. He later wrote it down in his journal, 10 minutes a day. The best prescription I've ever heard, and here's the thing. She didn't know what she was doing in a scientific sense. But intuitively, she was regulating her nervous system. Letting her body reset. Allowing her mind to empty before the clutter of the day filled it again. In doing nothing, she gave herself everything. It's ironic, isn't it? We fill our lives with productivity, trying to earn peace later, when she started with peace, and built her life from that place. Now imagine this. What would happen if you, starting today, gave yourself 10 minutes? Not 10 minutes to be productive. Not 10 minutes to improve. Just 10 minutes to be. To sit. To breathe. To not solve, fix, plan, or analyze. What would shift? What would soften? What would you hear? From the part of you that's been trying to speak, but is constantly drowned out by the noise of doing. She found that voice. Not by chasing it, but by sitting still long enough for it to rise. And over the decades, that voice became her compass. She didn't live longer because she avoided risk. She lived longer because she stayed rooted in herself. While the world pulled in 1,000 directions, she returned, every morning, to her own center. There's something sacred about repetition. Doing something every day, without expectation, without reward, it rewires the brain. It teaches patience. It teaches presence. That was the power of her habit. It wasn't just that she paused. It was that she paused consistently. Every day, even when she didn't feel like it. Even when it rained. Even when she was grieving. Even when there were dishes piled in the sink or bills on the table. She always made space for that one quiet moment. And that consistency? It became an anchor for her brain and body. Her nervous system came to expect peace. So it stayed calm. Her immune system learned to trust stillness. So it didn't overreact. Modern medicine is starting to catch up. Today, we know that daily mindfulness, even informal, reduces markers of inflammation, improves heart rate variability, enhances memory, and slows the aging of brain cells. But she never read a paper about that. She simply listened to how her body responded. And her body responded beautifully. In her final decade, she remained sharper than many people in their 60s. She never forgot a name. She followed the news, read books, even started learning Spanish for fun. Not because she needed to. Because her brain wanted to keep learning. She wasn't fighting age. She was living with it. Gracefully. Gently. Attentively. There's something powerful about a person who doesn't fear getting older. When asked if she was afraid of death, she said, "I've already died and come back 1,000 times in my chair." She smiled, "Every morning I let go of the world, and every morning it gives me another chance." One of her granddaughters once asked her, "How do you always stay so calm?" And she answered with a whisper, "I stopped rushing the moment." It took her years to understand that most stress didn't come from what was happening, but from wanting something else to happen faster. She stopped chasing and started witnessing. Most of us live in the next thing, the next meeting, the next errand, the next message to reply to. But she lived in the now. That made her rare. And in that rarity was resilience. You see, her practice wasn't fragile. It didn't require a yoga mat, or a class, or a guide. It required only presence. Presence, she believed, was the most powerful medicine. Not presence in performance, not being on, but presence in the quiet. Presence when no one's watching. Presence when nothing's expected. That's the kind of awareness that changes the chemistry of the body. And hers changed, for the better. Her heart rate was consistently low. Her breathing steady and deep. Her joints remained flexible well into her 90s. Not because she stretched every day, but because her body never forgot how to relax. She didn't hustle for health. She surrendered into it. She didn't manipulate her mind. She made peace with it. And that peace radiated into her posture, into her conversations, into the people who visited her. Many said she was the most calming person they'd ever met. They didn't always know why. But they felt better around her. It wasn't magic. It was the ripple effect of inner quiet. People often assume that the most powerful things in life come with effort. We believe transformation requires intensity, sweating, striving, straining. But not her. Her transformation came slowly. Quietly. Like the way fog lifts in the morning. Unnoticed, until you realize you can see clearly. And this clarity, it showed up in everything she did. She never multitasked. If she was with you, she was with you. When she watered her plants, she spoke to them softly. When she cooked rice, she stood by the pot until the steam lifted just right. Even in the smallest things, she gave her full attention. That's what most people missed. They saw a woman who did nothing for 10 minutes a day. But in truth, she was doing the most important thing anyone could do. She was training her mind to come home. And a mind that knows how to return, to breath, to body, to this moment, becomes a mind that doesn't panic when life shakes. When her husband died, she grieved deeply. But she didn't fall apart. When her savings dried up, she adjusted. Calmly. Not because she had no emotion, but because her nervous system had been trained in the language of calm. That training didn't come from a retreat. It came from presence. And over the years, presence became her power. Her emotional range was incredible. She could cry with you, laugh with you, sit in silence with you, all without rushing to fix or explain. She knew how to hold space. We talk about that like it's a modern concept. But she lived it naturally. Because 10 minutes of silence every day teaches you to listen, not just to others, but to yourself. And when you really listen, you start to heal. You begin to notice what drains you, what nourishes you, what's true and what's just noise. She had no tolerance for fake urgency. She used to say, if it won't matter in 10 years, don't let it ruin 10 minutes. That kind of clarity only comes from sitting with yourself regularly. One of her doctors, a younger woman, once asked, "What do you think is the best medicine you ever took?" The old woman smiled. "I don't know if this counts, but I took silence with warm water." The doctor laughed. But later, she found herself doing exactly that. And over time, she told others. A ripple began. All from a single woman's habit. A ritual so small, most people wouldn't even call it one. There was no branding. No book deal. No followers. But there was something rare. A life of alignment. A life where health wasn't something she chased, it was something that followed her. She didn't fear her body breaking down, because she had listened to it for so long. She didn't wait for illness to slow her down, she slowed herself first. And maybe, that made all the difference. We live in a world of constant urgency. Notifications. Schedules. Deadlines. We are conditioned to believe that rest is something we earn after productivity. But she lived the opposite way. She started with rest. And from that rest, her energy arose. She wasn't trying to be efficient. She was simply being whole. And that wholeness, it's what gave her longevity. In the last years of her life, people started asking her for advice. Not because she was famous. Not because she claimed to have answers. But because she radiated something rare, a calm that felt contagious. They wanted to know what vitamins she took. What supplements. What secret foods or ancient herbs. And she'd always smile and say, "I take stillness with my tea." At first, people thought she was joking. But she wasn't. She meant it. Because stillness, for her, was more than a moment. It was medicine. When you sit in silence long enough, you begin to notice the noise inside your mind. At first, it's uncomfortable. But over time, it becomes familiar. And eventually, it becomes quiet. That's when healing begins. Not when the world slows down, but when you do. She taught that not through lectures, but through the way she moved through life. She didn't resist aging. She welcomed it. She didn't resist sadness. She let it pass through. Her acceptance wasn't passive, it was powerful. Because when you spend 10 minutes a day watching clouds, you learn that all things pass. All storms fade. All tension softens, if you let it. And yet, stillness isn't easy. It takes courage to do nothing. To stop producing. To stop proving. To just be. Most people are terrified of that kind of pause. They avoid it with distractions, endless tasks, endless scrolling. But not her. She stared into that quiet every morning, and found herself waiting there. She used to say, "Peace doesn't come when life gets easy. It comes when you stop fighting the moment you're in." And in those 10 minutes, she stopped fighting. She stopped pushing. She just breathed. And her breath became her refuge. Her anchor. Her teacher. You might think she was just lucky. But luck can't explain 4 decades of mental clarity. Luck doesn't keep your heart strong or your memory sharp. Luck doesn't make your presence healing to others. She created that. 10 minutes at a time. Every day. Without fail. And when death finally came, it didn't feel like a thief. It felt like a visitor she'd already met in her quiet mornings. One she welcomed like an old friend. We don't talk about that enough. The kind of life that ends in peace, not panic. The kind of goodbye that feels like a final exhale, not a fight. That's what her ritual gave her. Not just longevity, but grace. And isn't that what we're really after? Not just more years, but better ones? Not just longer life, but softer landings? So here's what you need to know. She didn't live 94 years because she had perfect genetics. She didn't stay healthy because she followed every new wellness trend. She didn't avoid illness by accident. She practiced health. Silently. Gently. Daily. And not the kind of health you can track on a smartwatch. The kind that begins in the breath. In the nervous system. In the space between thoughts. The kind of health you don't measure but feel. She gave herself 10 minutes a day. 10 minutes of no obligation. No rush. No performance. Just time to return to herself. And in doing that, she gave her heart rhythm. Her brain balance. Her body rest. Her spirit grounding. What if that's the real secret? Not more effort. But less noise. Not more control. But more surrender. Maybe you're not sure where to begin. You don't need a course. You don't need a perfect morning. You don't even need silence. You just need to stop. For 10 minutes. Put the phone down. Sit by a window. Hold something warm. And let the moment hold you. Try it tomorrow morning. Try it for a week. Not to improve yourself, but to remember yourself. Because the version of you that is well, and clear, and calm, is already there. It's just buried under everything else. She found hers through stillness. Now it's your turn. You might be surprised what you find when you stop trying to do everything. Simply sit with the person you already are. Not the one on your resume. Not the one on your social media. But the one who quietly breathes beneath it all. She listened to that part of herself every day. And that's what kept her well, not just for a year, but for a lifetime. If this story moved you, if it made you think differently about health, about life, or about your own daily rhythm, hit that like button. Subscribe to Human Health Hub for more stories like this. Real stories. Human stories. That just might change the way you live, one breath at a time. Thank you for being here. We'll see you in the next video.